with data table parameter one exercise. That exercise is here. This is what we need to do now. Let us try to understand this exercise. I'll explain you first the exercise, then I'll put it in the paper. I have now flight reservation. My aim of the exercise is you need to practice it without anybody's help. Then the clarity will come how the data are being passed. In this exercise, what I need is, in this flight reservation, I try to type the date here. For each selection of this flight, there are a lot of flights from and to. In this combinations, I want for all these combinations, my aim is for all these combinations, fly from and fly to, you have n number of combinations. I want to check minimum of some flights to exist in this flight table. I need to ensure there is minimum number of flight to exist here. So how to do that is what we are going to see it in the exercise. This is a real test case. For all the combinations of the flight, let us assume that I want minimum 4 flights to be present. So to check that, we are trying to put it in the automation. I want to automate this test case. So I'll now put it into the wordings to check minimum of 4 flights for each of the combination of fly from and fly to. If greater than 4, test case to pass, else test case to fail. This is what I want to check now. Right? So this is my exercise. So how to do this? Let us see now. Is this exercise clear to you all? I will repeat again. In this flight reservation, aim is for the combinations of the flight that you see here, fly from and fly to, I need to check minimum of 4 flights exist for that combination. From here I need to check minimum of 4 flights exist for this combination, and I want to pass the test case if it is having 4, that combination is having 4. If combination has less than 4, I want to fail the script. This is what I want to achieve in this exercise. To start with, let me start my record. I'll start my recording. As usual, I need to ensure that Windows application, I am on to the first option, record and run test on any open based application. So if I am in the second option, I need to ensure that the application is configured to this window. I say OK. I record now. First, my recording is very simple, because for this combination I need to just go through the flow, one positive flow, Denver, Frankfurt, flight, I click on OK button. That's all. My recording is over. Clear the screen, base state, no, stop my recording. Recording, you can see now it has took hardly a minute to finish my recording. It took hardly a minute. But is it clears my test case? is it validates my test case. Exercise 2. To check minimum number of flights for each of the combination of fly from and fly to. This is my test case here. So very simple to record. So record hardly took time. But if I run the script, it doesn't give me a pass and fail status. So what I need to do now? First is the step that we need to do. Step required are 1. Arrive or modify the script in such a way that script is able to go through all the combination of flights. Right, from and to. Second, as per my instruction or as per our requirement, we like to use only data table to achieve this. There are several ways to do it, but we like to do it with data table, because we have learnt data table, so we like to use the data table. With this exercise, we also understand what are all how data table data is being passed on to the script as well. Various ways to do it, but this way we like to do it. So then how to get all the combinations of flights. This is our aim. What is that we need to do now? I am doing it in front of you, but you have to practice. Now my aim is to get this Denver and Frankfurt. I like to parameterize. This is what my aim is. Usually what we do, we can use, I want to use global flight. So requirement says fly from to be configured in the global sheet, fly to be configured in the action sheet. Right? Why we are configuring global sheet and action sheet? In QTP, global sheet act as a outer loop. Action sheet act as inner loop. This is how the QTP behaves. Right? This is how the QTP behaves. I'm just putting all those into the notepad as well. So what I mean to say is, for I equals 1 to 10, next there are some commands in between. Then for j equals 1 to 5, next again for k equals 1 to 5 or 1 to 3, next. Assume that you have a loop like this. Do you all agree now? For every j, every I, j loop is used, then k loop is used. J loop 5 times, k loop 3 times for every I data. So if I have 10 times, J loop will execute for 10 into 5 50 times, K loop will get executed for 30 times. I hope you are all agree with this. So for I equal to 1 to 10, this next is what global sheet, the way the global sheet will behave. Global sheet will treat that entire script actions that you see into as a global guide, will iterate all the actions as a loop. This is the action 1, or if I have a multiple actions, this is the action 1 and K is the action 2. So this for J is nothing but action sheet data. The data in the action sheet will go through, act as an inner loop. This is the data of action 2 sheet. Assume that we have multiple actions, 2 actions. This is the way QTP uses the data. So for I equal to 1 to 10 and for J equal to 1 to 5, for K equal to 1 to 3 till the loop ends. This is outer loop is nothing but a global sheet. Inner loops are nothing but action sheets. Each inner loop is representing now one action. This is the way QTP manages the data table. So let us see that practically how it is doing the job. So I am coming back to QTP now. I am coming back to the data table. In this data table, I like to configure, because my idea is for each of the fly from, each of the combinations in the fly from, I like to use, say for example, if I choose Denver, I need to go through all the flights appearing here. This is what my aim is. So I want to parameterize this. So that is why I am putting fly from as my global sheet. For each of the Denver, I want to go through fly 2. So that is why I am using fly from as a global sheet, fly 2 as a local sheet. Now I configure this. If I want to type it here, if I put Denver, Frankfurt, F small, script will not work. Even though VB scripting is not case sensitive, but it doesn't mean that data is not case sensitive. So if you make a spelling mistakes, or if you start with even a lower case, Frankfurt is not recognized. So you need to exactly put the value that is appearing in the list box. Even if the list box has a spelling mistake, you have to use it with the same spelling mistake. If the list box content having a space, you need to have a space over here. So it has to exactly match as it is appearing in the list box. That is the first important point when you are connecting the data into the data sheet. Right? Now I like to, there are many ways. One is you can type all the values if you remember it. Or easiest way to do it is, I'll just remove these 2 lines that I have created. I just remove it. I now rename this column A. To rename the column, select the column, double click on the header of the column. I rename it as DT underscore fly from. And in action sheet, I try to make it as, again selecting the column A. I moved on to the action sheet, selected the column A. I am changing it to DT fly to. DT represents it is coming from data table. Fly from represents the column, the field name that I want to replace it with. So I want to put it global sheet fly from action sheet fly to. I want to copy the data of fly from and fly to inside this. To do the copying, it is very simple. I am just using object_spy because I know object_spy will retrieve all the data. I like to use the object_spy. I have opened the object_spy window. I pasting that object_spy onto that fly from. I am bringing the hand symbol onto that fly from. Now you can see all items. I select that all items. When I select the all items, you can see below selection below. You can see that all selection items are appearing here. Shift End I copy the entire content, Control C, I paste it here. Paste it onto my global sheet. I am into global sheet now. Ensure that you are into global sheet. I now paste the values here. This is the way I can copy the data using the spy button. So I now copied the list box content into this. This is the first approach I am taking. I don't know whether this approach is right or is it going to give me an error. I am trying to, because the content of the list box I have to put it in the fly from. Now content of the list box 2 I want to put it under fly 2. So again I go to spy. I spy it. Spy the 2 button. I have selected spy. Selected the 2 button. All items multi-line. I choose selection, copy, and then I paste it. Paste it under fly 2. So if you notice here, as you copy the data, you notice here the number of rows that is got created here is 9 rows. That is in action sheet, total number of rows that has got created is 9. In a global sheet, total number of rows that is created is 10. And also if you notice, the Denver that is you see in the fly from is not available in this to list. Denver that you see in the fly from is not available in the to list. Right? These are all some of the points that you need to be very careful with. So if I try to introduce that Denver into the to sheet, I just like to insert a line. I type in the value. You may think that it is a mistake. So I introduce the Denver now. So what happens if I configure it and run the script? How the script is going to run? We'll see that now. How to configure a data sheet to the script? Easiest way is come to the keyword view, open the flight reservation, select the object that we want to parameterize. In our case it is fly from. Click on the value that you want to parameterize. Click on configure value. I put on parameter, select parameter. It is a data table parameter. From which sheet you want to take the value? It is global sheet because it is fly from. What is the column name that you want to retrieve? I want to retrieve DT fly from. Very simple. Okay. Now I like to configure fly to as well. Fly to. Select the configure value again. Select the object that you want to configure. Then click on the value. Click on configure value. Again parameterization. Yes. Which parameterization? Data table. From which sheet you want to retrieve the fly to? It is from the action sheet. As I select the action sheet, you can see that the control below in the QTP is moved to the data table, has moved to the action sheet. You can notice those. Then column name that you want to parameterize, DT fly to. So I have finished my configuration. My job is done. So I expect now script to run for all combinations. So let me run the script. Now let me run the script. First thing that you need to note down is if I want to run for all rows, action sheet configuration is available under action, right click, action call properties, run on all rows. So this is the one which makes it to set for all rows. That's fine, very good, I have set it, good. What about global sheet? How to set iterations for a global sheet? So action sheet is for a local sheet. How to set an iteration for a global sheet? File, note down the settings, file, settings, Under settings, run tab. This run will by default set to run on all rows. This settings by default it is set to run on all rows. Please make a note. There is a question asked here. I have total number of 3 rows in the global sheet. I have 3 rows in the action sheet. How many times QTP run by default? Answers are 1, 3, 9, 6. The answer is by default global sheet is set for all rows. By default action sheet is set for run only one iteration. So totally 3 into 1, only 3 times it will iterate through. So answer is 3, neither 1 nor 9. So you have to be very careful on this. By default QTP is set global sheet, file settings run. It is set for all run on all rows. Action sheets, all action sheets are set for one iteration only. Please remember this point. Now I have parameterized, I configured my iterations to run for all iterations. I am like to run the script. See how the script runs. Is it running or is it failing? I am click on run. I click on OK button now. Before I do that, I ensure that there is a delay introduced. Tools, options. The delay is to ensure we are able to see because of the refresh that you see. Now I run the script. We need to see the script as it runs. Since it's an online class, there is a possibility that you might skip some screens. Anyway, now it is on to the line number 5. Line number 5 is selecting the fly from. Then it is trying to select now Denver from the fly to. It is trying to select Denver from fly to. Since Denver is not found, he is now coming up with an error message. Please read the error message carefully. Cannot identify the specified item of a fly to object. Confirm that the specified item is included in the object's items collection. So I am looking for a Denver in my script. I am looking for a Denver from my action sheet. The first row item is Denver. But as I select the from, the to list doesn't have that candidate. So if I select a Frankfurt from fly from, to list doesn't have a Frankfurt. You can notice that now. So the selected flight in the from is not in the destination flight. Origin flight, whatever I have selected, it is not part of the destination flight. So if it is not part of the destination flight, now my script is tending to fail. It is not an application failure. My script is failing because my fly from and fly to are two different entities. There is a validation whenever I select the fly from, the selected flight from the flight from list is not appearing in the to list. So how to solve this? So even you might think that I can remove the Denver from here. If I remove the Denver from here, then it may go through the first 9 iterations. 10th iteration, when it comes to the I equal to 2, that is Frankfurt, when it comes to the Frankfurt, now this Frankfurt to Frankfurt will fail. So if I